So let's go ahead and get started. Where are you guys from? Let's start there. You guys, I know you guys are from Charleston, and are you guys together? Do you work? No. Okay. Oh, you're all the. I got you. You brought the whole team with you. And you, sir? Spartanburg. Spartanburg. Okay. Right down the road. So I'm from Myrtle Beach, and I'm glad to be here. I'm also a part of the Horry Georgetown Home Builders Association. And I teach classes for them quite a bit, and Mark called me and he's like, "Can you come teach one at the state convention?" And so henceforth here I am. And so this is an interactive class. I'm not going to stand up here and talk the whole time. But a little bit about me. I founded PCRX Computers in 2007. We help businesses with IT support and cybersecurity. We've been serving local businesses since 2007. I'm a native to the Conway area in Myrtle Beach, Conway, Myrtle Beach. It kind of goes together. Host a radio show on Talk 94.5 about cybersecurity because we're trying to get the word out to help people to be more secure. And I wrote the book, which I have some copies of up here, which you guys will get to go home with. A copy of my book, Welcome to the Jungle, because it is kind of a jungle, right? Cybersecurity. Just, regulations are there, but it's the Wild West, and a lot of people just don't know how to navigate through it, and businesses especially, because let's face it, you guys want to focus on your business. You don't want to have to be worried about hackers getting into your system or being held up for ransomware or those types of things. And so this is where we can come alongside you, and we can pretty much cover anybody in the state, because a lot of the stuff that we do is remote support. All right, the NSA, you guys have information. I guess you can take notes if you want to. You don't have to. But the NSA has the top 10 cybersecurity mitigation strategies. And before I get into this, I will say that I don't necessarily have 2 hours of material. But we can, I want to value your time. And so maybe we can get you out a little bit earlier so you can get to the wine bar. No? What's the name of that place? Okay with that. Yeah. So the government, love them or hate them, they came up with this is how you are supposed to mitigate cybersecurity. It's not a catch-all, end-all, but basically there's a telephone in the way. But it says identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So how do you do this? Update and upgrade your software all the time. Have either somebody that does it, or you have to do it. It has to be done when patches come out, because a lot of times security vulnerabilities become 0-day, which means they happen and we have no knowledge of it coming. So it's kind of like, I live at the beach, so I use this analogy. A hurricane you can sort of prepare for because you know it's coming, but a tornado could just pop out of the blue and there's not much you can do. And that's the same situation that we're in. And so software companies, while they can't stay ahead of it, when they find out about it, they can patch it. But if you don't patch your computers, then you're not going to be secure from that. So that's the number one thing. Number two, defend privileges and accounts. So when I talk to a lot of businesses and I audit their systems, I find that everybody's an administrator. Everybody can't be an administrator. That gives everybody rights to every computer and all the data on your whole system. So what we recommend is that you have users and very rarely have an administrator. Enforce signed software execution policies. And that's just using up-to-date software. You'd be surprised how many businesses I walk into and they're running a Windows 7 machine, and some I've seen even XP machines in there. So signed software is newer software, so you just want to make sure that you have that. System recovery plan. What happens if it does happen? Do you have some sort of a plan? Who do you tell? What's the escalation path? We were talking about the media and how do you let your customers know, those types of things. We're going to dive into some of these a little bit further along, but this is kind of an overall view of the things that you're supposed to do. All right, actively manage systems and configurations. So these are configurations within your network. So a lot of times you might have a piece of software that you're using for a CRM, for example, and then 3 years from now, you might say, well, I don't really like that software, but I want to use this software instead. But you got both softwares on there. And so that's managing the applications that you have. You want to take off what you're not using, Because if you're not using it and it's on your computer, the odds are you're not doing updates and patches to it, and it can be a hole, a way that a hacker can get into your system and cause some damage. All right, next page. Continuously hunt for network intrusions. How many of you have time to do that? None of you. Which is why, I mean, you know, I talk to a lot of businesses, and you know, the conception is that what people think is that I'm a small business, it's not going to happen to me, and that's just simply not the case, because small businesses have a lower level of security than somebody like Walmart or Target, and even they get hacked. So having a person, we have an EDR solution, which is endpoint detection and response. That's monitoring of your systems 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, looking for intrusions. We call them footholds. And so what happens is we were talking about AVX earlier, the kid that took the guy's computer and put a virus on it. Well, that was a foothold. And what happens is that's constantly running on your computer when you start it up, when you shut it down. It's set and it's tied to the startup, and it's always running. But what happens is a hacker, you know, they send out a wide net, and then they just try and see who's going to click on this or click on that. But whenever that foothold gets put on your computer, it goes into a ticket list, and they work the tickets. And so all this time, you might have that on your computer, but the hacker may have not got to you yet, which is why finding those can often prevent cyber attacks, because just because you have something on your computer doesn't necessarily mean it's infecting it just yet. It could take some time for them to do that. Leveraging modern hardware security features. Don't use old computers. You know, 4 to 5 years, change them out. Put it in your budget. It's just a better way to just use modern stuff. Segregate networks using application-aware defenses. So if you don't have a big network, that really doesn't apply to you. This is the government saying this should apply to everybody, but not everybody has multiple different networks. Like we do a radio station, and the radio station's on a different, the computers that actually run the radio station is on a different network than the computers that the office manager works on. Simply because we want to make sure that everything that's on that network, we have it secured to the best of our ability. And especially if it's a critical system, like for a radio station, that computer goes down, they can't play their music in commercials, then they can't get paid. So that's a problem. But it's just something to keep in mind. Integrate threat reputation services, and that's just kind of a detection. You know, a lot of people think that antivirus does all of these great things, but how many of you think that if you have antivirus on your computer that it's actually doing anything for you? I mean, we've had it for what, 25, 30 years? It's the same thing. They just keep calling it different names, but all it does is it detects it when it's in there, but it's not preventing anything from getting in there. And I think that's where the point that we are in technology is we have to find a way to actually prevent the thing from happening in the first place. And my computer's way over there, so I'm going to have to just kind of go off the screen here. Passwords. Passwords are a big thing. We had a construction company in Georgetown. They had all their passwords in a Excel spreadsheet. Hacker got into their computer, downloaded the spreadsheet, had all the passwords to everything. And so guess what happened? Got into her bank account, wired out $100,000. She called me. She was in tears, and she's like, I don't know what to do, but I heard you on the radio, and I need some help with this. And so I went down there, and I told her, I said, I can't get your money back. I said, but we can try to help you prevent this from happening again. As we were sitting there talking, they had transferred another $100,000 out. And I mean, as builders, you guys know that you have to have a certain amount of money in order to build houses and in order to do projects and things like that. And so it may not necessarily be money they had, but money that was in there for a specific project or something to that effect. And the owner, he was just like, everything I worked for my whole life is almost gone. I mean, so you just think about that and let that marinate, because we cannot let our guard down for 1 second.
Are you going to talk more about how we should be doing that? 'Cause There
Yes.
are some things where we have, I mean,
Yeah.
we have one account, so.
Right.
A furniture store or something like that, so we,
You share the password, or
and we create we do have an Excel spreadsheet for those kind of things, and you have bank account numbers, but like for our accounts with other vendors.
yeah. I mean, it's important that you protect that because I constantly hear we do a lot of HVAC companies, and they use a software called Service Titan. You may know of it, and they swear that because I use this piece of software that my information can't get stolen because it's in this piece of software. Problem with that theory is if someone gets into your computer and your password is stored in a browser or on your computer somewhere to Service Titan, hacker gets into Service Titan, what happens then? You think about, you guys all heard about the Uber situation, right? It was all over the news. Then when Uber got hacked, the HR department called one of the Uber drivers and said, hey, we need you to change your password. And so they sent him a link on his phone. He goes in, changes the password. Well, guess what? It just gave them the password to get on Uber's network. Took it down. Similarly to what happened at MGM. One of the call center agents allowed the hacker to get in by doing a screen share with him because she thought he was somebody from the IT department. I mean, they're super crafty. They really are super crafty. 81% of security breaches come from weak or stolen passwords. How does that work? Well, let's take Walgreens. This is my favorite example. I had this lady, and we also have a storefront where people can bring in their computers and cell phones and iPads and stuff and get them fixed. And she had come in, and she's like, I got hacked, and she told me what happened. Well, she got this email from Walgreens, and it said, you have a prescription. Do you need to verify the prescription? So she clicks on the link, and what does it say? It says you have to log in to view your prescriptions. And so she logs in with her username and password, and she knew it was the correct username and password, but it came back and said it was incorrect. So guess what the hacker just got? Your username and password for your Walgreens account, but hacker knows you probably have that same username and password for maybe other important accounts. So after that, she's like, well, she put in her secondary password, and we all have these, right? It's the first password, but maybe it's got a asterisk or a exclamation point or a couple numbers after it. And so she puts that in, and it comes back, it says invalid password. And so then what do you think the next thing it said was? Log in with Facebook, right? So people want to know, how does my Facebook account get hacked? Crazy stuff like this happens. You're not realizing you're doing it. You're thinking you're logging in with your Facebook account to some of these things, but you're actually giving that information out to a hacker or somebody that's has bad things going on, wants to do bad things with it. So, and then of course it came back after that, and then it asked for her she could log in with Google, and then she eventually figured out what was going on. But just that quick, all the passwords and usernames, and that's not even putting them in a spreadsheet or putting them in a browser, that's just somebody clicking on a phishing email. So password management is extremely important. 3 out of 4 companies do not have a password manager. This is the answer to your question. You need to have a password manager. And again, I'm telling you all of these things so that you can hopefully take some of this information back and you'll be better prepared to deal with cyber threats. But we also will have solutions at the end of this that we can help you with some of this stuff. And we have a really good relationship with Mark and the HBA, and so we offer special programs and discounts for people that are part of the Home Builders Association. 55% of security breach victims are small businesses, 55%. So thinking that you're too small doesn't have a whole lot of weight. It's right there in black and white. Okay. Data breaches are the new normal. Here's something else to marinate. 4 million records are stolen every day. That's 166,000 an hour, 2,776 every minute, and every second, 46 records. Every single second. And this slide's probably 4 months old, so it's probably a little bit higher than that because it just keeps going up and up and up. but it's just gonna, I always say that as we get closer to the election, I think cybercrime is just gonna shoot through the roof. And, it just seems like every time there's an election, something is going on something kind of crazy like COVID, and then, what's the next thing, right? All right. So, a couple of things I want to touch on. Believing antivirus is enough, that's a common misconception. We kind of asked that question a little bit earlier. If you have antivirus, do you really think it's doing anything, or are you just kind of going through the motions and thinking that you're being protected? The warning signs, what are some of the warning signs? Some things that are happening within my network that can tell me I've got a problem and I need to look for some help. And then not seeking validation. Validation is extremely important because you want to have those reports. Too many people will hire an IT company and they're probably really great at doing IT work. And they're nice to have because you can call them and they can fix something when it's broken. But having an IT company that's focused on security is much more valuable because we're looking out for the best interests, and we're giving you reports and showing you the things that we're doing and showing you the vulnerabilities that you have in your network and showing you how we patch them so you're more understanding of what's actually going on in your network. Okay, first one, believing antivirus is enough. 75% of ransomware victims report having up-to-date antivirus. 75%. So is it really doing anything? Probably not. You guys can talk to me. Or you're just deep in thought. I can slow down because it's, I try to, but if you have questions, do raise your hand or yell it out. It's fine.
Is there a lot of fear, do you think, among the public that it's wasted money and don't even?
Well, they don't know nobody knows what to do.
Yeah.
Okay, you tell me that antivirus is awful, then tell me what to do. And there's nobody that's doing that. And that's why it's so crucial for cybersecurity experts like myself and others that I work with. We're out at these conferences, we're preaching it, I'm talking about it on the radio, because my passion is to help people to be more secure, not only just your businesses, but everybody. Because there is a way that we can help prevent probably majority of this stuff, which we'll get to at the end. But I want you guys to understand some of the you want to know right now. You gotta build the what is it, anticipation and all that stuff. I don't know. I'm just having fun hanging out with y'all. So what does it mean they thought they were safe? And some people, I call it a false sense of security with a lot of these things because, look, you have an alarm system at your house. Y'all have alarm systems at your house? No? You don't?
Replace the batteries in 100 years, so yeah.
No? Nobody has an alarm system at your house for somebody breaks in? Wow, you guys are a tough crowd. But people do have that because of why? Because of what's important inside. And, and they want to protect that. And the different layers of security is how you do that, which, like I said, we'll get to here in just a minute. So, a lot of people are investing in security, but is it the right security? Because the attackers are still getting in. They can bypass the antivirus, and they're always what? Changing all the time. I mean, in my world, it's every day it's changing. Different things. And we've had 2 major vulnerabilities come out in the past 7 days that big time are major. One of them is the worst one I think I've ever seen in my 20 years of doing this. And all the news wants to talk about is not that. And it's a big deal because what's happening is they're integrating ransomware into image files. What's the problem with that is what's the entire internet made of? Image files. So I digress. And they're always changing their tactics, just like I'm talking about. So now they're going after these image files where before, all they had to do was try to get past antivirus. Antivirus is kind of like your immune system. So what that means is if you get sick, then your immune system kicks in and helps you feel better. But your immune system isn't necessarily going to prevent you from getting sick unless you have a super duper strong immune system. And that's sort of how antivirus works, is yes, it will probably clean something off of there, but do we really want to get something on there to begin with? And the reason is antivirus looks for patterns in files, and so when you're running a file, it's looking for different patterns, and as long as the patterns are good, it will let the files run. But when the patterns start to change, then it starts to think that something's up, and then it may or may not block whatever's trying to run in the background. But a lot of times then it's too late. And I just explained that. If it's seen a file before, it assumes it's good. If it sees something different, then it doesn't seem as bad. And hackers keep changing their files, and antivirus programs, they just can't keep up with, you know, they're not updating the antivirus as quickly as the hackers are coming up with different ways to penetrate things. Artificial intelligence. What did you guys think about artificial intelligence?
Is that what you were kind of alluding to just a moment ago about searching for image files?
Yeah, but what they're doing is they're attaching malicious websites to image files on the internet. So if you click on an image file, if you're on a website, a legitimate website, and there's an image file on there that has an embedded back end that takes you to a malicious site, but by then it's...
that can expand exponentially?
Oh, it's going to be bad. They just, it's really bizarre that it's not being covered, but it's, you know, and that's just part of my job is I work with other cybersecurity experts, and we know what's going on out there, and we have, you know, that's how we protect you guys.
With ChatGPT this week, is that part of the?
It is. A lot of people are scared of AI, and of course, it's like any new technology or any technology in general, it can be used for great things. But the other side of that is, you know, henceforth we have the dark web and the deep web and the super deep web and, you know, all of those things.
So a hacker wouldn't necessarily want to incorporate that because they would lose control.
Correct. So in security, what works today or what worked yesterday doesn't always work today. So, and this is true again with antivirus. I keep beating on that, but it's, you know, that technology is 20-something years old at least. You know, since we've had computers, we've had antivirus programs. So let's talk about a small office, for example. If you had a small office and let's say you had 10 or 12 people in there and they answered phones and did all kinds of different things, and then COVID hit, and what happened when COVID hit? They all had to go work from home, basically. And the point is that when they're working in a business, you guys have control over their computers more and the security more because you have a firewall and you have all these programs and you have invested in security. But if someone's working from home and they're accessing your files from their home computer on a less secure network, how does that affect businesses? Because, you know, you're not going to put expensive firewalls at everyone's house just to let them work from home. You know, how do you do that? And all this stuff I just said, I know my material too well. One of 17 users was phished. And 1 out of 5 users of those will click on a malicious link. And that's one of the things that I cannot take your hand and tell you not to click on something. I wish I could. I'd be like an octopus with a lot of arms. But, you know, what are we doing? How are we teaching our employees? You know, do we create a culture of security in our business? And the culture of security is like, for example, I have a heating and air company and they're pretty big. And, you know, they're concerned about phishing and training their people. And so we put all their people through our training, which is an online training, and they have to go through it once a year, and it teaches them what they should know and what they shouldn't know and what they should click on and all of those things. And then it will randomly send out phishing emails every couple months to see if you click on them. Well, if you click on them, guess what it does? It sends you back into the training again. It says maybe you didn't get this. And so the heating and AC company, they sort of took it and ran with it. And so they have this wall of shame. And so if you had to go through the training twice or more that year, they put your picture up on the wall. Yeah, and so, but that creates a culture of security, because now what are your employees doing? They're like, should I click on this? Yeah, you know, right? And that's kind of the point. We're trying to get them to pay attention, because we all get distracted and we all have 100 bazillion things to do, right? And
Brian, what does it mean for small business people
Mhm.
to be on the internet? But, I mean, in my business, I have a computer, of course.
Mhm.
I do my accounting through QuickBooks software, probably like
Most everybody,
four of us in this room do.
yeah.
Am I on the internet doing that?
Yeah, you are. It depends on the version of QuickBooks that you're using. QuickBooks Online is online. QuickBooks Desktop is on the desktop, but you still have to get updates, so you know you're going to want to be online. But
And see, you probably would just freak because the first thing you said was always do your updates. I'm probably using a 2012 version of QuickBooks that I bought the disk and put it on my computer. You know, it tells me I need to get rid of it in 5 minutes.
well, it's not secure. That's the why it's telling you that. You know that there's no updates available for that program, so therefore it's not being patched. So if you're running that on a computer, I don't care how new of a computer it is, there's not getting any security patches. So the last one it probably got was, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe. So imagine how many holes there are, you know, between then and and QuickBooks is important, right? It has all your stuff in there.
I mean, it's not got anything but stuff. I mean, there's no bank information there. There's no.
Well, how does that hurt you? I'll tell you a quick story. We had a client, and they called me, and actually it was I think it was like an insurance company or something, but they got attacked, and they got all their computers were ransomed. So in other words, they're all locked down. They say you got to pay this amount of money to get your computers back up and running again. And the amount of money that they were asking for was the exact amount that they had in their bank account, which they could see that from a QuickBooks program. That's the short answer to that question. But you can sort of see how that, I mean, I'm just trying to get you to think about it, that's all. I mean, because, you know, you're just opening yourself up for, you know, you could use that 2012 version of QuickBooks, but don't plug that computer into the internet.
Okay, well, what does that mean?
That means you unplug it. If you have it, what do you have it connected with, wirelessly, or you have an Ethernet plug in the back of it? Do you check your email on that computer?
Good question. No.
You don't?
You have Wi-Fi or anything?
I guess I use Wi-Fi for printing, don't I?
Potentially, yeah.
Printing the checks, I mean,
Mhm.
sending a check to the printer.
Yeah, if you wanted to keep using that program, you'd have to move that whole system offline completely. So you wouldn't connect it to the internet at all, not wirelessly, not plug it in, nothing. Just a computer with QuickBooks on it and a printer that's plugged into the side of it.
And not sending that check by Wi-Fi, it's gotta go.
Yeah, you gotta take the printer with a USB cable, plug it into the computer, hardwire it.
Otherwise, you're getting on the internet.
Yep, otherwise you're getting on the internet. So, I mean, you have to weigh that out as far as to what makes the most sense for your company. You know, I'm just wanting to help you think about it. But training is really important because you want your employees, you all have employees, right? I know you guys do. You don't, what kind of business are you in?
I'm on
They're a home builder, okay. Maybe if I turned it on, it would be good. So we were talking about ransomware, and so how does that happen, and what does a hacker do once they get into your network? So first of all, they can get past your antivirus, and then they can access basically a VPN that kind of goes between the computers. So if you have your computers all networked, they all talk to each other. And if they're all administrators, then all of them have rights to any of the computer and any of the data that's on the network altogether. So if one of them gets ransomware on it, then it can spread to all of the other computers, because the hacker knows how to laterally move between computer to computer to computer to computer. Which is why we talk about elevation and making sure that your administrator accounts, only the people that need to have those have those. It's easy because, like, from an IT perspective, if Judy calls me and says, I can't print to my printer because it's telling me I don't have enough security clearance, or I don't have, and then we just give everybody admin privileges because we're tired of them calling us, because every time they want to print, it says they have to be elevated to an administrator. I'm just using that as an example. That's not really true, but it's a similar kind of thing when you're getting these types of calls. But it's important that you make sure that your elevation, you want to just have user accounts, and then have a way to elevate that to an IT company or to someone that is in charge of your computers and your network that you go to when you lose your passwords or what have you that's in your company. So like we were talking about with AVX earlier, where the kid took, or the guy took it home and the kid got on it and they got a virus. And then that computer, once it connects into this network, bam. I mean, and they were down for 3 months. That's a long time. I mean, you have to think about the value of that. You know, that's your whole business. I mean, if you were down for 3 months, what would that look like to your company? Food for thought. This particular company, 13 days downtime, and they had to pay the ransom. We had our local school district got hit with a ransom, and it was, I want to say, $50,000 or $60,000. And they worked like, they tried and tried and tried to get their data back without having to pay it. But, you know, and the problem is when you pay it, what's the odds you're actually going to get your data back? I mean, you're relying on a hacker that's already hacked into your system, and you're going to give them $50,000 and a hope and a prayer that you're going to get your data back.
Being corrupted.
It's
Or
right.
have another way
Right.
back in later.
So yeah, it's crazy, but they ended up paying it. They ended up getting their data back, so all is well. But it was a lot of days of turmoil. I mean, you got to think of a whole school district. You know, can't do anything. So what kind of businesses are at risk? All of them. Small business, big business, business in the cloud, all of them. Unless you want to take your computer offline and just use the QuickBooks that way. But I mean, eventually you're going to have, if you grow bigger, you're going to have employees, and you're going to need to get on the internet, and you probably will want to have software. So, you know, these are good things for you to be thinking about as you grow your company, if that's the goal that you have for it. I know some builders, they just build on their own like their whole life. They just are a one-man show. So it just depends on what you're trying to do, you know, in the long run.
So I have a question. So we're still dealing with malware and stuff, right? I'm sorry, we're dealing with phishing. Has that like gotten worse over time, or has it gotten better, or?
I don't know. I mean, I get emails. Sometimes the software that we have will catch them, but not every time. I mean, I'll get emails about, you know, changing people's bank accounts, when, you know, and it's like 2 days, like it's the day I'm doing payroll, like it's like 2 days before, and I But I mean, I feel like when I worked for a CPA firm for a while, like we always had to do the little classes. They would send out the phishing emails, and then we
Yep.
would take the class and stuff. Again, if you clicked on stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like I haven't really. I mean, yeah, I guess it kind of has gotten worse, but
Has it ever been a concern, like, you know, because we use our personal phones
Mhm.
for work a lot, well, I do, anyway, too.
yeah.
If that's ever.
I mean, so
caused a
you're,
concern, you know, keeping that
it depends on the,
communication
it depends on the
separate.
type of phone you have. Apple tends to be a lot more secure than an Android. How many of you agree with that? You do? One person? You don't know? You have no idea? So,
Apple and Mac products, so that's what I've always heard.
well, do you know why?
Someone has once explained it to me, but that knowledge is gone now.
Yeah, it takes up a lot of brain space, and you probably don't need that brain space for other things. But basically, you have, let's just take Windows and Mac, for example. Windows software can run on all types of different devices. Asus, Dell, HP, all these different ones. Apple software only runs on Apple devices. So therefore, they can tighten up that security a lot better because they're in charge of not only the hardware, but the software. Whereas Windows, all they can control is the software because you have all these other companies. Same thing with Android. You have Android that runs on Samsung and LG and all the other ones it runs on. So it traditionally will have more vulnerabilities because it has to be able to run on all those different types of devices, whereas Apple can, you know, kind of grip it down to some extent. So that's the short answer.
I was just bringing it up because we've never had a problem using personal phones as part of our work. But, I think, I'm thinking back to the old days, you know,
Yeah.
when you would have.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the biggest thing about phones is your passwords.
Guided device or whatever, and it's almost impossible, you can't do it nowadays.
Mhm.
But I kind of wonder whether businesses kind of have to go backwards a little bit. You know,
I don't
to
think
save
so.
what
I
we're
mean,
seeing.
we have electricians and HVAC companies, and those guys are running around with iPads, and customers are signing tickets on them. I mean, you can do it, just as long as your base network, people can't get into it and get into your Service Titan software or whatever software you're using and sabotage you.
Well, we don't have anything like that. We don't have any software.
I just use it as an example, but yeah, I mean, in general.
Old tools or something like that.
Yeah, you're
That's
right.
all like client.
Yeah.
That doesn't hold a whole lot. Personal, I mean, like,
I hold some.
Flow tools doesn't have very, I mean, just people's addresses and emails and phone numbers, but not like.
but I guess it maybe doesn't even matter though, because if it comes to malware,
Mhm.
they're just taking your whole system. It doesn't matter what software or apps you got on it or whatever, they just
Yeah,
shut it down, right?
yeah, you just,
Are there symptoms of that at all?
yes.
Okay.
I'm kind of dragging it out a little bit because I know I don't have 2 hours worth of stuff. But you guys might get mad at me if I. All right. So all of these businesses, if they get ransomware attacked, they're all going to have to pay the ransom. I mean, or they're going to lose their data. And then there's a how much of % chance that you're going to get your stuff back.
Let me ask you this, what is your DAT?
Sorry?
What is your DAT?
My dad?
Anything on the
What do we,
computer.
so they take all my data, what have they got?
Well, they have anything that you have on your computer that's of any importance to you. A lot of companies will have logos and documents and flyers, all the different things that make up their business on their computer
Again,
systems.
but you would say segregate that from what's on the internet.
Correct. That's called backing up. We do backups. That's you want to make sure that data is backed up in a secure location. Now, in your case, you know, you're working by yourself. I mean, you could potentially put it on an external drive and unplug it from your computer and do it that way. But a business that stays on the internet all the time, you have to put security controls in place. You know, the biggest thing for businesses, especially the ones that do payroll, is you have your personally identifiable information in there. And the FCC's actually cracked down the past 2 or 3 months. Basically, anybody that does credit cards, you now have to go by all of those regulations. So that's been causing a lot of stir, but it's the same kind of thing. Like HIPAA, for example. I told this story earlier downstairs that we had just taken over an urgent care place, and those urgent care places, I don't know about where you guys live, but where I live, they just seem to pop up on every corner. It's like I'm driving down the road, oh, there's another urgent care place. But none of them are HIPAA compliant, at least not the ones that we've checked so far, and they absolutely have to be. Anyway, the one that we took over, I went in there when we were going through the audit, and I said, so where do you guys put the information that the patient gives you? And they're like, well, we just put their name in here. And I was like, well, what about the insurance or the Social Security and all that stuff that, where you guys can get paid? And she's like, I don't put any of that in the computer. I was like, well, why not? And she's like, because it's not secure, and I'm not going to be responsible for that. Now imagine running your business that way.
Yeah.
Scared to death. And so they were very happy that we were able to come in there. But I mean, if OSHA decided to hit some of these places, it would be terrible. And then the med spa is another thing. They're supposed to be under HIPAA regulations, but they seem to be popular. You guys have those med spas?
Yeah.
Yeah, this I feel like it's kind of new, or maybe I just heard of it recently, but I don't know if they've been around for a long time or not. So you need to make sure that more than antivirus is protecting your users and your data and your reputation. And we talked a little bit about reputation earlier, whereas if you have customer data, personal identifiable information that's stolen, that has to be reported. And of course, by doing that, it can cause a little bit of instability in your business because customers will not to know whether or not they can trust you again with their information. So you just have to be careful. I know that in February, I had an accountant call me. If an accountant calls you in February, it can't be good. And she's like, I can't file any tax returns. I don't know what's going on. And so we went in and we did an audit and found out that the hacker got into their web portal for filing tax returns and just started going at it, filing all these fake tax returns. Well, the IRS saw it, shut them down. And so the next day when they came in, guess what? Now they can't file tax returns until they get it all, until we got it all situated to where the IRS was happy and actually turned the portal back on. But I mean, you're an accountant, you're kind of stressed out about that. And that's just how quick it can happen. And, all right, so how do we do that? We have a layered approach. Of course, this is the one that causes the most problems. Because, look, I mean, your employees, you have a stakeability in your business as an owner, but your employees might not. And they need to know that the things that they do can adversely affect your business. They don't think of it that way because they think of it as a job, but we need to train them. We need to be more proactive in this because that way they're thinking about things that can negatively affect our businesses. Perimeter, network, endpoint, application, and data. All of this protects what's important that's in the middle. We talked about that alarm system at your house earlier because you wanted to protect the people inside your house. Well, the layered approach would be, those people that have the sign out in front of their house that says protected by whatever, ADT, CDI. Does that sign actually protect them? It might, probably not. Most people will get past the sign, right? They get to the door. Then the alarm system goes off. That's layer 2. Let's say you have a dog. That's layer 3. You got to get past the dog and the alarm system. And layer 4 might be you in the back room with your shotgun. All of that before they actually get to what they're trying to get to. Same thing with your network and your security, because even your data, look, your personal data is the most important thing that you have to protect it. And I'm speaking on a personal level, but it's just as important in business. And too many people are giving away Social Security numbers and all this information willy-nilly, and they're just asking for trouble. Like you asked me about LifeLock. LifeLock's great if you want to spend that kind of money every month, but if you just are proactive with your own safety, Maybe you don't need that alarm system at home because you're proactive, or maybe you don't need some of these things. But how do you know how to be proactive? You go and you learn and you take classes and you have people that tell you, look, you guys need to do these types of things. And I'm as hard-headed as they come, but you know, I'm constantly going to school because they're constantly changing their tactics. So I want to think, if I tell you a hacker, what do you think of? If you pictured a hacker in your mind, what would he look like, or she?
Someone in Russia wearing a dark hoodie.
Because that's what you see all the time in the internet, right? Or you might think of a messy dorm room with some kid, you know, typing on a computer trying to break into your stuff. But in actuality, this is there's more money made in this than there is in the illegal drug trade, by far. And these guys are in skyscrapers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to get a hold of as much data as they can get a hold of.
That's their job. They go to
Mhm.
sit
And they might, what they're going to do is try to build a profile. So they might get your email address from some form you filled in, then they might get your name from something else, and then they might get your social security number from something else, and then they might get your credit card number from somewhere else. And they take all of these pieces and they're making this profile of you because that's where you get identity theft. It doesn't just happen. Like tomorrow your identity is going to be stolen. It happens over time. This little piece of information, this piece of information, that piece of information, maybe you got a password that was breached on the dark web and they got into something and got some more information from you, and before you know it, they've built this profile and now they can act just like they're you because they have all your information. And AI is going to make it even easier for them because, you know, people say that AI is new technology, but I mean, Face ID's been around for a long time and that's a form of AI. But it's just going to make it easier because, you know, if you think of something, or it's like if I'm talking to you about, I don't know, a new sofa, and what happens 20 minutes from now when I go onto the internet? I'm probably, when I leave here, going to have pictures of sofas on my internet. So, you know, with that information, they're learning and they're building this profile so that they can eventually act like you. So, warning signs. Simple warning signs are, lightning does strike twice. If you've ever been hit by one, a lot of people said if you got COVID that you wouldn't get it ever again if you got it one time. I don't think that's true, is it? I don't think it's true. I think you can have it more than one time. Same thing with ransomware. And hackers often leave back doors because, so we were talking about footholds, right? That's what we were talking about, where they have the foothold in there. That's basically a back door, so they can access your computer anytime they want to. All right, so you can log into your business email without being prompted for an access token on your phone. That's one issue. What is an access token? Does anyone know?
Like a Face ID or a password.
Kind of. So when let's say you got a new computer and you use Outlook, and you have the new computer and you log into Outlook, or usually on your old computer you could probably just click Outlook and it opens up your mail, right? But now if you have a new computer, what has to happen? You got to log in. So when you log in, it creates what we call an access token on that computer. So it's letters, numbers, it's a token. So when you're on that same computer and you open that Outlook, it knows that you've already put in your username and password and it thinks that you are you, right? What's the problem with that? Somebody gets that access token and puts it on their computer, business email compromise. It's all over. So what we like to tell people, and I know it's a pain in the butt, turn on two-factor authentication. Make sure that you're logging in. I mean, it's okay if you leave it open when you're working the whole day long, close it out, log back in the next day. Because if you're storing those tokens on your computer, something happens to it and that token gets stolen, then they can use your email against you. And business email compromise is a big deal right now. They're getting access tokens and it's crazy. All right. Spam and unwanted email. We don't ever have that thing from Geek Squad that, you know, you got to renew your subscription to Norton or all the different ones that you get, right? Take a look, make sure everything's okay. 74% of organizations in the United States, 74% experienced a successful phishing attack. That's a big number. Of those, 65% experienced a business email compromise. That's how big a deal it is. So you got to protect that as best you can. And again, password managers, two-factor authentication can help with a lot of that stuff. I don't know if you'd be able to see that with that telephone there. 47% were infected with ransomware. So you're getting lots of warning messages or pop-ups. Do you get those? No? Pop-ups, warning messages. So the thing about phishing emails is it wants you to do it right now. It's urgent. You have to do it right this second. It's emotional. They want you, and it's believable. And you know, $100 bills, we always have to get them checked when you use them because some of them are fake and some of them are not, but they all look real. Same kind of thing with your emails. Gotta be careful of that.
Are you saying that when you go to a site and it's immediately asking you to accept cookies,
Mm-hmm.
that's legitimate?
I mean, cookies are fairly harmless. It's just like a breadcrumb trail of where you went on the internet, but you should, you know, be in some sort of habit of deleting those every so often. You could set your browsers to actually do that for you every so many days to delete the cookies in your history and that type of thing, just to keep your computer. Main thing it will do is make your computer run a little bit faster because it's not trying to have all these tracking cookies all over the place. All right. You don't know what to do if you see something like weird emails in your sent items. How about profile updates like an unexpected change to your phone number? A new signature. Now the profile update would be like, let's just use Facebook for an example. If you have a Facebook profile and it gets hacked, they're going to change your information in there, and then Facebook's going to email you and say, hey, did you make this change, whatever that change is. Keep an eye on that type of stuff. Facebook especially, always turn on two-factor authentication. If you use that, hackers love to get Facebook accounts. And those little name tests that you see people take all the time that's like, show me what type of potato I am and those things. All it's trying to do is data mining. It's trying to get your information and trying to build that profile on you, so be careful.
I think for Facebook, like, you know, it's one of those things I've just kept because I have a lot of older family members that are still on there, but is it worth keeping a Facebook profile, or would it be better just to delete it?
It depends on why you want to have one, because like for me, I totally wouldn't have one if I didn't own a business. By far, I would not do it. But like you said, keeping up with older folks, or you know, I've actually had some decent success with social media marketing on Facebook. So if you're using it for like a business purpose, for advertising and for trying to build your brand, I think it's great for that. You just have to think about the purpose of having it, you know. Is the pros and cons, you know, that kind of weigh it out deal. All right, mail forwarder that sends messages to the trash bin. You guys probably don't see that very much. That's more of an enterprise. Password changes unexpectedly. That's a big one if you notice that, like you know that this is your password and it's different. Check that and make sure that you're the other thing is that you need to make sure that there's a method to report a security incident. We talked about this a little bit earlier, that you want to have some kind of disaster recovery plan. If, and it's almost not if anymore, it's when this happens, who do we tell? What happens down the pike? Make sure everyone's on the lookout, have a documented way to get help. Make sure everyone knows what to do. Now, the validation part is kind of what we do. And how am I doing on time? Ooh, I still have a whole nother hour. What do y'all want to talk about?
The password, like, managers. So I have keychain on my MacBook, but beyond that, what are, like?
Keychain even is okay. It's not that great.
Yeah.
We use Password Boss. We have a kind of a package together that we'll show you at the end of all this, but it does have a password manager in there. And basically it's a 256-bit encrypted password manager, and you put your passwords in there for everything that you have, and then the only thing that you have to remember is the password to the password manager, right?
If you forget that.
Well, that's not a good thing. You need to make sure you have a backup for that. But if you only had to remember one password, that'd probably be pretty great, wouldn't it? And then the password manager actually generates the passwords for you for all of your other sites. That way it can't be stolen, and you're not reusing the same password for 50 different sites. I mean, that's a bigger danger.
These are all the personal things that we put in our password.
Correct. So it's much more secure. It has a sharing option. So if you got it as a company, you all had this Password Boss in the company version. So if you, like, I don't know, let's take Amazon. If you shop on Amazon and you're the only one that has the password to the corporate Amazon account, but she needs to order something on the Amazon account, she's like, hey, can you share that with me? All you got to do is share it in the share center to her for a specified amount of time, and then it's not shared anymore.
So if the three of us had access to the pass, we would all have our own 3 passwords into the password manager?
Yes, you would each have your own personal version. Now, the good thing about that is it works on Mac, it works on Windows, it works on your phone. I love it because the same passwords I have on my computer, I have on my phone, and I have in the password manager, and I know they're all secure, and it tells me whether or not they've been, like, whenever you first move into a password manager, you're still going to have all your old passwords because you're not going to want to go in there and change them all. But as you start changing them out, it's going to make them more secure. Now, some people will go in there and change every single one of them because they want that higher security score. But there's a security score in the bottom, and it's constantly checking your passwords against breaches on the dark web. So if it finds a breach on the dark web for that password, it will automatically prompt you to change it. So it kind of just takes the guesswork out of it, and it doesn't give you that false sense of security. It actually is security.
And that doesn't get hacked?
No, haven't gotten hacked yet. It's pretty stout. It's a great. There's a lot of password managers out there, but not a lot of them are secure password managers. They're just password managers. Like LastPass got hacked. I don't know if you heard about that. There was a couple other ones that just came out in this most recent vulnerability that aren't going to be able to be used. I think it was Bitwarden and some other one. But this is the only one that I know of that's secured, and that's why we use it. I'm very particular about companies I partner with because it's my name on the line. I'm not going to sell you something that I'm not going to stand behind them that I don't personally already use. Okay, so X-rays at the dentist. Do we get those? Does anyone go to the dentist? You guys are falling asleep. Okay. Why do they take X-rays at the dentist?
They can see your teeth.
Right. So they can maybe see what's wrong with your teeth, right? So how about your network? Have you ever had an X-ray done of your network in your? This may not apply to you if you just have that one computer, but in your network. So what has to happen? Let's just take my company as an example. If I can't just come in and say, you need to buy all these things and all your problems will be solved. I can give you some great tools and tell you that they'll do a lot of great things. If you truly want them to all be solved, you have to take an X-ray. And what the X-ray does is it goes through your system and it actually acts like a hacker, and it comes back and it tells us all of the different ways that it could penetrate your system. And then that's how we can take that information, similar to a dentist, and fix whatever the problem is. Instead of just telling you it's going to be $1 million a month and you know, we're going to sell you every piece of software we have, when in actuality you might not need all of that. Every company is different. So if you have an IT department, or you, and you know, there's going to be other people that watch this in the future, but you know, if you have an IT company and they're not providing you scans of your network, then that's a problem, because how are they showing you what you're paying for? So sometimes you might think, what? That's not my job to do. So whose is it? Who will be responsible for communicating to your clients if you have a breach? And this was already prepared before we had that conversation.
The owner of the company for a small business.
Yep. Somebody that's going to also deal with negotiating the ransom if you get ransomware. A lot of times business owners, they have like, and you know, I call them the blinders, and they're really focused on growing their business and doing a lot of great things for their business, but you have to be able to see some of the other things that are in your blind spots and in your vision. And so it's not a priority. But the problem with it not being a priority is it becomes a priority when you get hacked or something bad happens to your company. Then what you're doing is you're picking up the phone and you're calling me after the fact, and then it's going to cost you 4 times as much for me to come and fix it. Versus if you're proactive and you never had it in the first place. That's kind of my take on it. I'm a proactive guy. I like everything to be proactive. And I'll tell you why. Just these responsibilities usually fall on the business owner's shoulders. All right, so we talked about being too small. So, do you ever proofread your own work? When I wrote this book, I did not proofread it. I gave it to my wife, and I said, you proofread this. And of course, she found all kinds of mistakes, but she's a school teacher, so that's, you know. But generally, proofreading your own work is not a great thing to do. So, you know, don't force your IT people to do it either. Which is, the penetration tests that we do alongside Galactic Advisors, is the company in Nashville. That's a third-party penetration test. It's not me coming into your company and running this test and then coming back to you with all these things and saying, hey, you need all of this, so you need to buy all of this stuff. No, that's not it. It's third party. Even if you have an IT person, get it done. You know, we won't tell them. Just for your own sake, so that you can see. Whether you do anything with us or not, I just hope that this opens up your eyes to some of the things that, you know, run the scan. It's not going to hurt anything. So now, what do you do? That's your big question. Oh, I'm going to get you guys out of here a little bit early. So, proactive, and I've been really frustrated with antivirus for a really long time, if you can probably tell in my presentation. And the problem is there's not been any other solution that can do anything for you any better than antivirus. So about 1.5 years ago, me and a friend of mine, he's also a cybersecurity expert, we actually built this program from the ground up, and it's called PCRX Secure. And it takes the place of your antivirus, but what it does is it takes your applications, let's just take Outlook for example, and it puts the application in a box, and it says, okay, Outlook, you can only do Outlook things. And so if you click on a phishing email and it tries to run a program and it's not part of what we already told it could run, then it's not even going to let the program run at all. It blocks it, shuts it down. So we call it application whitelisting. And so we're whitelisting the applications that you use, but we're also whitelisting all of the components of those applications within the library. So if you have an application, there's all sorts of processes and things in the background that make it look and do and perform like you want it to perform. Well, a hacker will a lot of time hijack those processes to run other things. So it can use our Outlook or Word or whatever and use it against us. And I think that's what's going to be happening down the pike with cybersecurity is, you know, we're going to plug all these holes, and that's great, But what if they find another way in, like a 0-day something? Antivirus isn't going to stop that, but application whitelisting will, because it's not a known file. It's not something I told it to run on your computer. And so for the last year, we've actually built a pretty substantial database of programs and files and structures that are already approved in the system. So you can put it on your computer and it will protect you from day one, because most everything that you're already using is already put in that database and already configured. And I think it's the antivirus of the future. I don't know, I'm pretty proud of it. We worked really hard on it. But I had to build it because I couldn't find anything out there to do what I wanted it to do. And the password manager, you know, we have partnered with Password Boss because they, again, have the best password manager out there.
Are those things that we can purchase separately?
Yes.
Like if we can't take
Yes, let me tell you. So
do it all.
this,
We do one or two things.
if to answer your question, get the scan, get the PCRX Secure. We have it for businesses and for individuals, so you can get it either way. And the Password Boss, we have a package through the SBA. I don't know if I need to move that so you can get that QR code. Just fill out that form and you'll get the special pricing for. Generally, if you wanted to get a penetration test done, the scan that I'm talking about, it'll run you about $1,500. HBA members, we don't charge for it. We just run it because I want you to know what's going on in your network. The package of the Secure and the Password Boss generally runs $55 a month, but we discounted it down to $35. I think it's $35 for businesses per month, and then it's if you just get the PCRX Secure for individuals, I think it's like $100 a year. But for businesses, it's a little bit more because, you know, we have the two versions of our, it's not really an antivirus product, but this product, and one is where we manage it, where we're constantly 24/7 looking at your computer, which is why it costs a little bit more for businesses, versus the product itself will run on its own. For a regular person, it's way better than an antivirus. And I mean, literally, we actually just launched it 2 weeks ago. So I mean, it hasn't really even been out. I haven't promoted it a whole lot. But I like to sign a copy of my book if you guys are interested to take with you. And then maybe answer any questions. But I feel like, you know, there's some solutions for you, and hopefully that you've gotten some good insights out of this class that you can go back and share with your team.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Is it okay if I be done?
Sure. You
I
don't stay running on our.
You're like, just hush up.
We got all